Should you use Obsidian Notes? Hi there, my name is Brian Collins. Welcome to the Become a Writer Today channel. So I've been geeking out about Obsidian for the past few months. I've recorded a few videos on the channel where I profile how I'm using Obsidian Notes. But I know many people have questions about whether it's actually a good note-taking app. So in this review, I'm going to do a deep dive into what Obsidian Notes is, talk about its pros and cons, and help you figure out if it's the right note-taking app or even Zettelkasten app for you. So I hope you enjoyed this Obsidian Notes review. If you do, hit thumbs up. And of course, if you want to get reviews of other note-taking or writing apps, then don't forget to subscribe to the Become a Writer Today. If you're not familiar with Obsidian, it's basically a tool that you can use for taking notes, for writing, and even for building a type of personal knowledge management system. I use it all the time for researching articles that I write, and even for books, and even for planning videos like this one. So Obsidian is available for Mac. It's also available for Windows, your iPhone, and also your Android device. So it works quite well across all of your devices. Now the great thing about Obsidian is that it's free to use. So you can download it and get to work straight away. If you want to, you can pay $25 to get access to early releases and also to support the team. And it is quite a small team that develop Obsidian, so I did actually go ahead and take out or pay this version. I also wanted to get access to early builds. And then if you're going to use it for commercial use, you can pay $50 per year. So it's really affordable. You can also pay an additional fee if you want your notes to sync across all of your devices. That costs $10 per month, but you don't actually need to pay this fee at all. Obsidian will sync with Icloud or with Dropbox or whatever file sharing tool service that you use. Now I use this because I wanted to test it for this review, and suffice to say it was rock solid. I currently use Obsidian Notes on my iMac, which is what I'm recording this video on my iPhone, and also on an iPad. I've set it up to sync notes across all of my devices. Now there is a key difference between how Obsidian Notes works versus a traditional note-taking app like Apple Notes, for example, or Evernote. So I can open up any of these files on my computer and open them up with a different note-taking or writing app. So to show you what I mean, these are all the notes inside of Obsidian, and you can see they're all just markdown files that sit on my computer. So I could open these up with another markdown app or another app that supports text files. In other words, Obsidian sits on top of my markdown notes and enables me to manage them, but they're not locked in the same way as they would be locked in with Apple Notes. So on the other hand, when I take notes inside of Apple Notes, which is what I have on screen, there may be formatting issues if I copy them across to a different app, or I'll at least need to export them from Apple Notes to use them elsewhere. So basically, you never need to worry about vendor lock-in if you're using Obsidian Notes. Not everybody will care about this, but if you're serious about note-taking or building a type of personal knowledge management system, or even a Zettelkasten, and I'll talk about that in a few moments, then Obsidian is probably the app you're going to default to over a traditional note-taking. When you install Obsidian to your computer, to your tablet, or your iPhone, the first thing you're going to want to do is to set up sync. Now I have another video where I do a deep dive into how to set up Obsidian, but suffice to say it's pretty easy to do. You can sync with Dropbox, or you can sync with the proprietary sync service that Obsidian offers if you pay a fee. It'll also prompt you to create a vault for your notes, so I called my vault a Zettelkasten. Now I have videos elsewhere on the channel where I explain exactly what a Zettelkasten is, but basically it's a place where I keep all of my research ideas and writings, and I use Obsidian to manage it. So you can call your Obsidian vault whatever you want. I just called it a Zettelkasten for the sake of convenience. Now there are lots of other settings that you can change inside of Obsidian. This is probably its biggest strength and perhaps one of its weaknesses. So you can spend an hour or two customizing the appearance of Obsidian, changing the themes, changing the shortcuts, and changing pretty much everything related to how it works thanks to core plugins and community plugins. However, you can also waste a lot of time tinkering around with Obsidian rather than actually taking notes. To be honest, it's a little bit like WordPress. So I've ran WordPress websites for years, and there's a variety of plugins that you can use to supercharge any WordPress website. But I've found that more often than not, some plugins will break. I'll eventually stop using some plugins, and I'll only use one or two plugins consistently and for the long term. It's the same with Obsidian. I basically try and confine myself to a few basic plugins rather than completely customizing how it works. Now, in another video on the channel, I do profile the plugins that I use in detail, but suffice to say, these are Janitor, which keeps my notes clean. So basically it deletes any orphan notes. Outliner, which enables me to create bullet point outlines. Paste URL into selection, which enables me to create hyperlinks quickly and easily. Periodic notes, which enables me to create daily, weekly, and monthly notes. A Readwise connection, which connects to the service Readwise and pulls my notes from Readwise into Obsidian. And also recent files and a plugin for searching the various settings inside of Obsidian. These are the plugins that I use, but in another video I do explain exactly what all of these do. But you will see some of them in use in this review. Firstly, Obsidian supports Markdown. That's basically a way of writing and formatting your text for the web or for publication as you go. So I'm going to paste in some formatted Markdown text. So you can see here that this is a heading 2. And if I click on this, you can see it has 2 hashtags which automatically formats it as heading 2. Similarly, this one here has 3 hashtags which automatically formats it as heading 3. This text here is in italics. And you can see here I use a single asterisk to format in italics and a double asterisk to format in bold. And because I installed the Outliner plugin, which I mentioned a few moments ago, I can move around these bullets quickly and easily using some keyboard shortcuts. So basically, if you're serious about writing online, or you just like to format your work and not have to worry about rich text, then chances are Markdown is going to be for you. And that's what Obsidian Notes is great at. Other note-taking apps or competitors like Apple Notes do not really support Markdown in the same way. Obsidian also supports adding contextual internal links. Basically, it'll enable you to search all of your notes and add links that you can click and use quickly and easily. To do it, you just simply press the square bracket twice, and then you can search all of your notes just simply by using this picker here. So let's say I wanted to put in a note about my Zettelkasten system. I can search for that particular note and then paste it into Obsidian. And then if I want to, I can click on this particular note and it'll take me to the other note inside of my Obsidian or Zettelkasten. Now I know it can be a bit confusing if you have multiple notes open in Obsidian. So this is one of the other things that I like. If you're on a larger monitor, and I'm on a 27-inch monitor, you can actually open up 2 notes side by side. So the way I use Obsidian is on the left-hand side, I may have a note that I've taken. And on the right-hand side, I may have an article that I've written or that I'm working on. So I'll refer to my notes on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I'll actually write the article in. So to show you this in context, on the left-hand side of the screen, I have a note I talk about friendship bracelets. This is a type of generative art project that I've been following. And you don't need to know what generative art is for the sake of this video, but suffice to say, these are just simple notes that I took when I was researching what friendship bracelets are. So I have links to Twitter threads, to various external resources, quotes from interviewees. So it's basically a brain dump of everything that I captured about the topic of friendship bracelets art project. But then on the right hand side, you can see the article that I actually wrote based on this brain dump. And if I change how it's previewed, you can also see how I'm using Markdown to add internal links and external links. And you can also see how I'm able to create bullet point lists and so on. So it's really helpful to be able to do this side by side inside of Obsidian. And because it's a Markdown supported, or because these are Markdown files, I can also open up these articles or these notes with another Markdown app. So I'm just going to press a keyboard shortcut that I set to open up this particular note. And now it's going to open up Ulysses, which is probably one of my favorite Markdown writing apps. I use this when I'm ready to publish an article. So you can see here it's opened up this particular article inside of Ulysses, and any changes I make here will be reflected back inside of Obsidian. And this is why I like Obsidian, because I'm not locked in to Obsidian. I can open up these notes with any app or any other tool that supports Markdown. Now, I guess the downside is, for the purposes of this review, it can be a little bit overwhelming, the user interface, and there is a bit of a learning curve compared to other note-taking apps. So basically, I like to simplify things when I'm using Obsidian, so I'll hide the sidebar, and I'll also hide the sidebar on the right-hand side. I'll talk about what that does in a few moments. And basically, I'll just have 2 windows open side by side. I usually use dark mode. There is a light mode available. I guess you could argue that the user interface isn't quite as pretty as some other note-taking apps, but the team have overhauled it over the past few months. And again, it is free. Now, I have several thousand notes inside of Obsidian, Of course, I didn't take all of these notes with Obsidian. I actually have been taking notes using Markdown for years. I just use Obsidian to manage them at the moment. So how do I navigate all of these notes inside of Obsidian? Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. So firstly, you can just simply use the left-hand sidebar and just scroll down through all of your notes. Now, at the time of recording this video, there's no way to do this with or using the arrow keys. This is something I really wish the team would roll out. So I actually have to navigate through these with a mouse. So that can feel a little bit unwieldy. However, you can also access your notes differently. So you can press a keyboard shortcut to open up a picker or a search box, and then you can just simply search for the note in question, navigate to the note in question, and automatically open it. The next way that you can find your notes is via hashtags. So if I open up a particular note here, you can see it has the hashtag strength. So I add hashtags to all of my notes so that they're easy to find. And you can access the hashtags on the right-hand sidebar. And then you can sort by most used and least used hashtags. And then if I click on one of these, so let's just click on minimalism at random. On the left-hand side, it will open up all of the notes that have the hashtag minimalism. So this is quite helpful for finding notes too. You'll also see that this has opened up a search box with this field here, tag. So I can actually just search for the note in question as well and find notes that way too. And you can expand or you can collapse the results depending on whether or not you find it overwhelming. So you can see here, if I expand it, it shows me the first few lines from the note. And if I collapse it, it just shows me the note title. So there are lots of different ways to find your notes inside of Obsidian. Now I also installed a plugin called Recent Files. And Recent Files just adds this little icon here. And when I click on this, it'll show me the last few notes that I've worked on. So I can access recent notes quickly and easily too. So there are lots of different ways that you can navigate around in Obsidian, but it does take a little bit of time to figure all of that out. You can also see that on the bottom of the screen, there is information about notes that link to this particular note. So in this case, I don't have any links. There is information about the word count and the character count as well. And you can customize a lot of this information using Obsidian plugins. A particular note is what is called a Zettel, and it's a principle from the Zettelkasten. So the Zettelkasten basically describes capturing small or atomic notes about a topic, interlinking them, and then having a central note or Zettel that brings all of these notes together. Now I have other videos in the channel where I do deep dive into the Zettelkasten method, but the reason why I'm talking about this is it's a good highlight of some of the features that you can use Obsidian for. So as I mentioned previously, I can access other relevant notes using the hashtags here or using the sidebar or the search. But if I click on this icon here, which is backlinks for Zettel, it'll show me all of the notes that link to this particular Zettel. So this would help me see natural connections between these notes. Similarly, if I click on this, I can look at outgoing links. So all of the notes that the Zettel is linking to. Obsidian does support rich media such as imagery and so on. Now, I did have some issues with using imagery inside of Obsidian and getting it to sync correctly across my devices. So if you're going to add images to your notes, do make sure that you go into the settings section and then you navigate to sync and you enable it to sync images across all of your devices. Otherwise, you won't be able to see them. Some other changes that you can make to Obsidian include an ability to create folders and subfolders inside of it. I don't do this too much, but you'll see I have a couple of them here. So I did set one folder for screenshots like PNG files and JPEGs, just to keep my Zettelkasten a little bit cleaner. I have a folder here called Readwise. Basically, I can connect Obsidian to Readwise and it will automatically pull through highlights from articles that I read on Pocket and also my Kindle highlights. Now in another video on the channel, I profile how to set all of this up. But suffice to say, this is a fantastic way to use Obsidian because you can pull your notes from your sources into Obsidian and then you can use this to write articles and so on. So I would encourage you to set this plugin up. You'll also see that I have a folder called templates. So basically I have a couple of different notes saved as templates. All I have to do is click on the note in question and then I can click on the insert template and it will pull through or add in one of the templates that I have in this particular folder. So I use this or these templates, for example, for my weekly reviews. I do a weekly review every Friday where I talk about what worked and what didn't work on a given week. And I have a template set up for this. So this is quite helpful if you write or if you're using Obsidian seriously, you can save a lot of your templates or workflows into this particular app. Now again, don't spend too much time tinkering around with it, but it is helpful to know that these are there. Perhaps one of the downsides of using it is because these are all files and folders on your computer, it can get a little bit messy and you can end up with orphans, that is notes that have no notes or nothing inside of them, or you can end up with notes with no content either. So to avoid that, I do encourage you to use the Janitor plugin, and Janitor will quickly scan your Obsidian instance for orphans and for files that have nothing in them and ask if you want to delete them or keep them. So it is quite helpful to install this one. Again, these are things that you wouldn't worry about with a traditional note-taking app, but I suppose that is the price you pay for using something that's a little bit more advanced or a bit more powerful. Obsidian also offers some unique features that I haven't seen in many note-taking apps. One of these is called the Knowledge Graph. The only app that I've seen using this or something like this is Roam Research, and obviously that's a lot more expensive with a monthly subscription fee. So basically the knowledge graph is you guessed it, a graph or a sphere that represents all of your notes inside of Obsidian. So you can zoom into any of these points on the knowledge graph and you can see the note in question. So for example, here is a note here about how NFTs bridge art and assets. And if I click on this, it will automatically open up this particular note. And then if I navigate backwards, I can also see all of the notes and how they connect to each other. So this is a good way of seeing natural connections that are forming between your notes, assuming you've started to add relevant internal contextual links. Now, it is quite helpful for visual thinkers. When I first saw this, I spent ages playing around and clicking with all of my notes to see how they were related. But over time, I realized that I'm not as much a visual thinker as I originally thought, so I actually don't use this that much. But it can be useful to see natural connections that form between your notes. So for example, here is another one here that I have about koans. And if I click on this, it links to all of my different notes or koans that I've captured inside of Obsidian. And you can also see here that the hashtags are present too. And I can click on any one of these to go to other notes that use this hashtag. One thing I like about Obsidian is the team are regularly updating the app. So I don't need to worry about using something that's breaking or something that's not being maintained. A new feature that they just rolled out is called Canvas. Now I haven't used Canvas too much yet, but for the purposes of this video, I'll give you a brief demo of how it works. So basically it's a tool for visualizing your notes and for planning your notes, kind of like mind mapping software, I guess. So to show you an example, here are several notes on the left hand side and here is a blank canvas. Now I'm going to start dragging in notes into the canvas and this can help me arrange them and form connections between all of these different notes. And I can zoom in and I can also zoom out to my canvas as well. And I can also turn on snap to grid, snap to objects and so on. So this could be quite good if, for example, I was planning a book or if I wanted to outline an article or if I was just doing some mind mapping or brainstorming with all of the notes that I've taken inside of Obsidian. And you can see here I can drag all of these elements around. So if I click on this one here, I can also add media. So imagery and so on. And I can also add web pages and I can even group all of these notes as well. Now, like I said, I haven't used this particular feature too much. It's brand new, so I'm still figuring out how this works myself. But I was pleased to see that the team are, releasing regular updates to Obsidian. Of course, there are alternatives to using Obsidian. So your first option is just to use the proprietary note-taking app on your operating system. For me, that's Apple Notes, or you could just simply use the text editor. And these are all fine for most people who want to take notes quickly and easily. However, they don't tend to support Markdown, they don't tend to support contextual internal links, and they lack tools that you can use for formatting and publishing your work to the web. Whether you care or not about that depends how often you take notes and what you're using them for. Other popular note-taking apps include Evernote and Bear, its lesser known competitor. I did use Evernote on and off for years, but I found it got a bit clunkier and slower, so I stopped using it. It also didn't quite meet my needs for a Zettelkasten. But again, if you're happy with Evernote, you could continue to use it without issue. Roam Research is perhaps the most well-known competitor to Obsidian. Of course, Roam Research is an altogether different type of app. So it works best in the web browser, although there is an app available for Mac OS and also for iPhone and Google Play. Now, Roam Research has a steeper learning curve than Obsidian. That said, it's built around the principle of taking daily notes. I did experiment with using Roam Research, but it is a little bit expensive. You have to pay a monthly subscription fee, firstly. And secondly, for an app that has a monthly subscription fee, I actually found it was quite clunky and slow to use on iOS. and also on my tablet, whereas Obsidian wasn't. And also because it's a proprietary note-taking tool, your notes are locked inside of Roam Research. And if you spend any time on the Obsidian forums, you'll find lots of former Roam Research users who are looking to migrate from Roam Research to Obsidian. Now that's not a criticism or a big criticism of Roam Research. I recognize it's a powerful note-taking app and many people love it. And I was impressed by some of the things that it does. But it does have a steeper learning curve than Obsidian and some slightly different use cases. It's actively developed, it's free, and you can customize it any way you wish. You can change the look and feel to suit your workflow. Now, if I were to criticize Obsidian, perhaps the only thing I would say is that you could spend a little bit too much time tinkering around with the settings rather than taking notes. And I'd also say that Obsidian can sometimes have a small learning curve versus proprietary note-taking tools. But that said, it's fair to say that the audience of Obsidian are probably people who are a bit more serious about taking notes or building a type of personal knowledge management system. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this review of Obsidian. Like I said, I've been geeking out with it for months. I have other videos on the channel that you should check out if you want to learn more about my writing and publishing workflow. And of course, if you want to get more videos like this, or you feel like there's a feature I missed or didn't quite cover, let me know in the comment section below, because I do use Obsidian every day. And if you want to get more reviews of other writing apps, then don't forget to subscribe to the Become a Writer Today channel.